And welcome to our first ever virtual Teens Leading Change showcase. I'm Candace Wingy Mack. My pronouns are she, her, and I manage system-wide young adult services at the Los Angeles Public Library. Our library system consists of our beautiful Central Library in downtown LA, where I'm broadcasting from right now, as well as our wonderful 72 branch libraries throughout the city of Los Angeles. Together with our TLC committee, I help coordinate the Teens Leading Change initiative. Thank you so much for joining us today as we celebrate and recognize the visionary work of the teens and library staff who worked on Teens Leading Change projects this past school year. Many thanks also to the staff of the Library Foundation of Los Angeles, our fiscal sponsor and thought partner on this initiative. And now we'll be hearing from Susan Broman, our Assistant City Librarian, to share more information about Teens Leading Change.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am thrilled to be here and participate in this showcase of the amazing talent and enthusiasm of the teens in Los Angeles. This program is always such a delight. Since the launch of Teens Leading Change in 2017, over 360 teens have joined their library teen council and generously volunteered their time, energy, and talent to work on 26 different civic action projects at 33 libraries. Teens Leading Change offers teens the opportunity to develop the skills and raise their voices to be heard in guiding the future of the community and of the world. TLC teens, working closely with a young adult librarian, research, design, and implement civic action projects on societal and environmental issues that impact their communities and their lives. The broad range of issues have included addressing environmental pollution through art, identifying and combating fake news, the relationship of litter to the perception of neighborhood safety, capturing cultural histories through storytelling, teens experiencing homelessness, and teen mental health and wellness. And that's just to name a few. The projects are really incredible. The program's goals are to expand teen civic awareness participation in Los Angeles, to empower teens to know and experience their role in a thriving democracy, to increase knowledge of how government works, and to nurture 21st century skills like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, information literacy, productivity, initiative, and leadership. We are here today to celebrate the accomplishments and the leadership of our fourth cohort of teen volunteers and YA librarians, many of whom gracefully and diligently have adapted to convening and working on their projects in this new virtual environment for many of us. Congratulations to the teen and staff of the Benjamin Franklin, Eagle Rock, Los Feliz, Granada Hills, Platt, Palisades, and Silver Lake libraries. Thank you to the Library Foundation of Los Angeles for all of their support, to our fantastic YA librarians for their creativity and their commitment to serving teens in their communities. And thank you to every one of you for being an advocate for the library and the impactful change that we can accomplish while we all work together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Susan. Next, we have Ken Brecker, the president of the Library Foundation of Los Angeles, introducing our special guest, California Supreme Court Justice Carlos Moreno.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I echo Susan's words, and thank you, Candace, for all of your work. I also want to say a very special thank you to Lenny and Bernie Greenberg, who have been the great sponsors, not only of the Teens Leading Change program, Democracy Project, but also the Summer Authors Program. And they're terrific, generous, and fine people. Thank you to my colleague, Shirley Tao, who is also helping to manage both of those programs sponsored by the Greenbergs, among others, to Karen Stevenson, Judge Karen Stevenson, an officer of the board of the Library Foundation, who's a great champion of young people. And finally, a special thank you to our city librarian, John Zabo. When people look at the history, people look at our history and the future, they're going to see that John was the 21st century leader that helped to inspire and define the public library in our own time. So thank you, John. We wouldn't be here without you. It's my pleasure to introduce Justice Carlos Moreno. He served 15 years in trial courts from state and federal level before serving 10 years on the California Supreme Court. And after that, he was the ambassador, our United States ambassador to the country of Feliz. Justice Moreno has a long history of championing social justice and civil rights from the bench. And I think he's probably best known, most well known, for his lone dissent in the California Supreme Court ruling that upheld Prop 8. Now, this was the ballot. It was a ballot initiative, actually, to amend the California Constitution to define marriage as only between a man and a woman. And some would say in doing so, Justice Moreno, in his dissent, made a particularly controversial and also courageous move. He had just been interviewed as a potential candidate for the United States Supreme Court. And in his dissent, he said, such a law not only allows same-sex couples to be stripped of their right to marry, but it places at risk the state constitutional rights of all disfavored minorities. It weakens the status of our state constitution as a bulwark, as a fundamental rights, the fundamental rights for minorities protected from the will of the majority. That's my favorite phrase in his dissent. The rights of minorities protected from the will of the majority. Now, the law has subsequently been repealed, and we can see in Justice Moreno's career an example of the strength and value of using one's actions and words, actions as well as words, to help shape a better future for all of us, for our country. It is a great honor to introduce Justice Carlos Moreno. Welcome.
Thank you, Ken, for that gracious and most generous introduction. I'm actually quite flattered. That's quite a bit to say about a boy who grew up in Solano Canyon near Elysian Park, and who used quite a bit the library in Lincoln Heights, and more particularly actually downtown when I was in high school. So I've always been very proud of my roots here in Los Angeles, and very happy with how, as a young person, standing in the shoes of many of the people watching this broadcast, using the great resources of the Los Angeles City Public Library. But today I'm particularly excited about how creative and visionary some of the projects we're about to hear about, ranging from cross-cultural issues to mental health, to voting rights, recycling, media literacy, fake news. Those are all cutting-edge issues, and issues that I think back when I was the age of these students, those things we really never really even thought about. So I applaud the groups that have worked on these very cutting edge and very creative issues for putting in the time and the effort to do that. I really don't have a lot to say, but I do have 3 comments to guarantee each of you success. And I believe these wholeheartedly. And it doesn't matter which career you want to go into, whether like me, you want to become a lawyer, you want to go into business, you want to become an academic, a doctor, whatever. And I consider the 3 ingredients to success are very simple. They are reading, writing, and speaking. Reading, of course, starts with what you're doing now and what the library amply provides you with resources to do. And reading just anything that interests you. I'm not wedded to any particular kind of literature or type of works that you have to read, but I think if you just read and you read voraciously, that will lead to the second element of what I think is a guarantee to success, and that is writing. You'd be amazed at the quality of writing that I've seen as a judge and elsewhere that really, frankly, is disappointing. And I think that's because people have not read enough. They have not read extensively to really hone their writing skills. And those writing skills will follow quite naturally from the broad reading that each of you will do. And the third element to success, and maybe you haven't thought about this, but I think it comes from public speaking. Some people might call that rhetoric. And I think in this day and age, we don't rely upon the art, so to speak, of being able to speak and convey ideas. Again, that doesn't matter whether you want to become a lawyer, a salesman, a doctor. The ability to communicate verbally, I think, is essential. And unfortunately, in many people in our culture, particularly the Hispanic culture and others, don't feel that they can express themselves freely and articulately in encountering and debating and discussing issues of note in our society. But I think the ability to speak will come as you build confidence. It'll come from having a wealth of knowledge from what you've read, from what you've written about, and it'll be step 3 in what I consider a guarantee to your success in whatever endeavor you do. So I'm very excited about what the library is doing these days, and particularly this democracy project. I wish that I had something like this to guide me in my career in my early days. Somehow I managed to overcome all of that. But when I look back, and I work downtown Los Angeles, when I look at the library, the new library, which I've been to many, many times, I think, you know, I used to spend a lot of Saturday afternoons here. I would take my lunch and then eat outside in the garden. And I think that really instilled in me not only a love for the resources of what the library had, but also a love of reading and doing research, things that really have stayed with me throughout these many, many years. So I congratulate all of you, and I look forward to hearing more specifically about the projects that you've worked on. And congratulations.
Thank you so much. Sorry. Thank you so much, Ken and Justice Moreno. I was trying to be incognito a little bit, but with the video off. But now, on to the teens leading change of cycle 4 themselves, starting with the teens from the Palisades Branch Library.
Hello, my name is Lily Yost, and I'm here with Maya Doyle and Mia Kalinsky to represent the Palisades Teen Council. We will be presenting our Neuro-Minded Project, a student-led initiative to educate our peers on the importance of mental health. Next slide, please.
So we're here representing teens of the Palisades Branch Library, including our wonderful YA librarian, Jessica Levy. And I'm Maya Doyle. Next slide.
So we decided on mental wellness to be our Teens Leading Change project because we noticed an increase in anxiety and depression, as well as higher rates of suicide in our community and in our generation. And if this issue was addressed by teachers and parents, it often involved misinformation, poor communication, and ignorance. And when we discussed these issues with our peers, it gravitated towards jokes and self-deprecation. And a lot of people didn't take it seriously, and we wanted to change this. Next slide, please. So the first stages of our project included research and education. So we invited speakers from NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, to share their personal experiences with mental health. And during quarantine, volunteers from Teen Line and the Trevor Project spoke about how they help teens manage their mental health. And we learned that everyone is affected by mental health in different ways, and reaching out to help others is always the best option.
After learning further about the effects that mental health conditions have on our peers, we discovered Senator Portantino's bill that was being proposed to the California State Senate, the Committee of Education. It was introduced in January 2020. Next slide, please. The bill proposed mental health days as a legitimate excused absence from public K through 12 schools, the same way that sick days are treated. Not only would this offer more support to students struggling with mental health conditions, it would also validate those struggles to teachers, peers, and parents. Next slide, please. After learning how to best show our support after learning that calling and letters were the best way to show support for this bill, we embarked on a campaign. We knew it was our civic duty to show support for the things that we believed in, so we wrote letters, did a peer feedback session, and then a giant sending day. And then we also went and called each of the senators on the Committee of Education, and it kind of became a competition to see who would finish first when we were all in the room together. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, COVID-19 interrupted us, and especially SB 849, and the bill was not heard. However, we still did manage to make our voices heard, as well as learning how to be more engaged with our state government and how to show support for bills in the future. COVID-19 also brought us some new members to our community and to our discussion.
Luckily, not only were we able to continue our project, but we expanded it in response to the increased concerns over mental wellness out of COVID. So we are in the midst of finalizing our Neuro-Minded magazine, a collection of art and written pieces by teens all over LA using creativity as a way to cope with the uncertainty and isolation. Next slide, please.
Hello, my name is Mia Kolinsky, and I will be talking about the main takeaways from our Neuro-Minded TLC project. Firstly, in our project, we found out the importance of mental health and, in turn, how crucial prioritizing mental health is. Another takeaway from the project was learning that mental health looks different in different individuals. For example, a trauma could manifest in all kinds of ways in a person, and people all have different coping mechanisms. Additionally, we learned that although not everyone struggles with a mental health condition, everyone should still take care of their mental health. I think another cool takeaway from creating the magazine was that we could make a time capsule of COVID-19 and remember in a few years how people coped with loneliness and mental illnesses in these trying times. During our meetings with Teenline and NAMI, we realized the important role of relationships in contributing to mental health. And with that, we talked about how to strengthen our relationship with those around us. For example, in Teenline, we learned that their #1 calls were about relationships. The Palisades branch invited speakers to talk about various mental health issues and conditions. We found these talks to be very interesting and informative, and going forward, the Palisades branch will be inviting speakers back and generally just focusing more on mental health in our programming. By talking about our mental health and making a magazine about it, I realized with other teens how common mental health struggles were and that they should not have stigma or judgment attached to them. From this experience, I can testify that myself and others will be speaking out against the stigma and generally working more towards destigmatizing mental health. Lastly, we became stronger as a library branch and realized that being there for each other, our friends, and our families, and talking about our mental health is crucial and it can save lives. Overall, we are so grateful for the opportunity for being able to be part of this project. Thank you for listening. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Lily, Maya, and Mia, and all of you at the Palisades Branch Library who worked so hard on your amazing project, which, for better or for worse, is even more important now, I think, than when you started it. And next up, another important project from the teens of the Platt Branch Library.
Hi, the Teen Council from the Platt Library created Cultural Diversity, the Experience. Next slide, please. The Platt Library is one of the center buildings of Woodland Hills, hosting events that bring the community together. Our library is used as a place to connect and learn about others. The Platt Library has several programs that deal with community outreach. For the Teen Council, volunteering at the branch and hosting events is a great way to get to know the library community. Next slide. California's culture is defined by its diversity. Its schools are made up of children with ancestors and parents from all around the world. Inside the schools, there are many clubs that highlight individual cultures. Despite the mixture of cultures, many people still develop myths, misconceptions, and prejudices. Many young children face bullying when displaying various aspects of their culture. Some are bullied just for being part of a culture. In order to educate our community about the unique cultures that surrounded us, we created the Cultural Diversity Project. Next slide. Our project focused on an event we called the Living Library. Individuals from countries and cultures around the world could share their stories and discuss their cultures, educating young children, teens, and adults alike. Our original plan was to hold an event where visitors could walk around and talk to the individuals participating. Due to the coronavirus, we changed our efforts into creating an online library. We held virtual meetings over several platforms and collected stories, learning about many different cultures. Next slide. We created 26 interview questions to ask each of our participants. The questions covered topics from family, food, and tradition to cultural change in the United States. We also asked many questions about assumptions and misconceptions people shared about their culture. Next slide.
We interviewed people from many cultures and countries, including Armenia, Costa Rica, Britain, Taiwan, Bangladesh, and the Jewish and Assyrian cultures. All culture information collected are from one person associated with each culture. The Platt Library Teen Council understood and took into consideration that each person does not speak for an entire country or culture. Next slide. California's diversity is often remembered but sometimes forgotten. Many young people recognize different cultures, but some do not, and a few do not know they exist. During our Living Library event, we were lucky enough to meet many individuals from different cultures. Some of these individuals came from cultures we knew little about. Hearing their stories and memories about their cultures allowed us to understand more about the difficult perspectives with which people view the world. We were able to dispel some of our own cultural stereotypes in our minds and create new understanding of different cultures. Next slide. There were 14 of us that worked to create the Living Library. Next slide. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Allie and Zoe, and everyone from the Platt Branch Library who worked so hard on your cultural diversity project. Now, here are the teens from the Benjamin Franklin Branch Library to share about their project.
Next slide, please. Hi, my name is Gisahra, and with me is Norma Argueta. We are the media makers here at the Benjamin Franklin Library. Norma and I are both our teen volunteers at the Benjamin Franklin Library at the heart of Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights has a long and rich history in Los Angeles. Close to downtown and accessible by public transportation, Boyle Heights has become a home to a multitude of ethnic and religious groups: Latino, Jewish, Japanese, Russian, Armenian, African American, and more. Next slide, please. One of our main concerns as being media makers is media literacy, the spread of misinformation and disinformation. Here at the Benjamin Franklin Library, we, the media makers, created PSA posters regarding voting and the importance of the census in our vote. One of our greatest concerns was how many of the people who lived in Boyle Heights did not want to take the census due to the fear of having to put their immigration status. This explained the undercounting of the census. What also many people did not know was why taking a census was important. A complete and accurate count is critical because it would help determine how billions of dollars in federal funding will be distributed. This is one of the many reasons why the census is vital, but many of the people of our community didn't know about. Next slide, please. One of our first projects was creating our teen magazine. The Vision was the name of the magazine in which we shared our voices in our first Teens Leading Change project. We wanted to expand to PSAs, and what we did as media makers was we just research how important PSA posters can be. We did this by participating in workshops and storytelling and filming PSAs. PSA stands for Public Service Announcement, and it means that it is a message in the public interest disseminated without charge with the objective of raising awareness of and changing public attitudes and behaviors towards a social issue. Little did we know the attention of our posters would get and how it would play a role in informing the people of our community right here in the Benjamin Franklin Library. From personal experience, making PSA posters made me feel accomplished in the way that it would completely change the perspective of people in our community on the census and how it actually would be beneficial for them through receiving funds in our community. Next slide, please.
So hi, my name is Norma, and I'm also a media maker from the Benjamin Franklin branch in Boyle Heights. So a little backstory. At first, I volunteered my time at the library to fulfill my 40 hours of community service just to complete my graduation requirements. However, after visiting my local library after not going for a long time, it made me realize how important the library is as a source for reliable information within the community of Boyle Heights. So before the pandemic hit, we were planning on creating these PSA videos to promote awareness on media literacy and how it affects the different aspects of daily life. Unfortunately, COVID has shown us how vulnerable our communities are and how the importance of voting and civic engagement has become apparent as we witness how our government handles this pandemic, as well as more difficult political issues such as the Black Lives Matter movement, the census, and rent policies, as many people become unemployed due to COVID-19 restrictions. Issues like this have shifted our focus to combating the spread of misinformation and learning new ways to connect. Next slide. We look forward to unraveling many of these issues through our volunteer work and teaching others on how to take action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giselle and Norma. Once again, another important project. And next up are the teens from the Eagle Rock Branch Library.
Hello, my name is Edmund Tuck, and I am the president of the Eagle Rock Teen Council. Today I'll be presenting with my vice president.
Hi guys, my name is Mika, and I'm here to help present our TLC project, Teens Are Awesome. Next slide. So the acronym in our name, AWESOME, stands for Advocates Watching Elections, Scrutinizing Opinions, Motivating Electorate. As you can probably tell from our name, our project was focused on voting and the election, and we wanted to help people kind of understand the voting process and encourage more people to register to vote. Next slide, please. So our TLC project was stationed at Eagle Rock Library. We are very, very lucky to have such a diverse group of people. We have people from different backgrounds, nationalities, and especially age groups. Luckily, we have a very active young adult / teen community and a really great YA librarian, Miss Patsy Tuck. And it was really nice because these were the kind of people that our project was mostly geared towards. Next slide, please. So our project had several goals. One of the things we wanted to do was spread awareness, not only about the voting process, but also about the history of voting and the history of voter suppression, especially since, unfortunately, voter suppression has ramifications even today. We also wanted to get people to register to vote. because we have an election coming up this November. Like I said, we have a very active teen/YA community. So we wanted to help these new voters kind of navigate the voting process for the first time. I was actually eligible to vote in the primaries this past March, so this project really helped me kind of prepare for that. We also have a very active elder community, and we wanted to help them understand and navigate the changes in the voting process, especially with all the new technological changes over the past years. So I'm going to hand it over to Edmund now to talk about how we went about our project.
Next slide, please. Yes. So what we addressed, so we spread awareness in our group by watching a video called Suppressed about voter suppression in modern times, specifically in Georgia in the 2018 midterms, and also about the previous history of voter suppression. We also took a civics course about the same topic and learned the unfortunate reality of voting in the United States history. Finally, we also went to a play called What the Constitution Means to Me to learn about the framing of the Constitution and how that has impacted voting through voting amendments. Next, sorry. We also addressed voter registration. So to get more people registered, we were planning to hold a voter registration drive, but unfortunately, because of the virus and social distancing, we were not able to do this. And then finally, we were planning to make a mock election program box, but again, it was supposed to be a physical program box, but because libraries are closed, we weren't able to do that. But we were still able to find good resources like rockthevote.com with good mock election walkthroughs. Next slide, please. So what we learned the history of voting rights and about how knowing them even today is crucial in understanding what voting is and why it's so important. Also, we also learned about historical disenfranchisement in certain communities and voter suppression that goes along with it, like voter ID laws or specifically like recently closing loads of ballot locations in very populous cities that have high minority communities so that their vote is suppressed. We also learned that voting is one of the most effective ways to be heard. Protest and civil unrest does work, but the most effective way to change is by going to the ballot box. This is why voter suppression is still very prevalent to stop people from using their power. The best way to bring meaningful change is to vote for those who you think will bring that change. And finally, what we learned was for most people, the most daunting thing about voting is the ballot. There are loads of measures and candidates that seem unimportant, but it turns out that there are much more important than many anticipate. Local judge elections are a good immediate example in our communities. They decide important cases in our communities that could have broader implications for future cases in the community. Next slide, please. So finally, our impact. We wish we could have had a bigger impact in our community than we did, but unfortunately the virus prevented us from being active in the library. A part of this would have been the voter registration drive, but also hosting programs open to the public about voting. Although an impact we did have was the Eagle Rock Teen Council was highlighted in a local news story about changes in polling locations during the March primary in California. We also had a teen blog submission about voter suppression during COVID-19. And finally, we also petitioned LAPL to add a voter registration link to their website. Hopefully we get that. And then finally, the impact on us as a group. So as a group, we have moved forward in our understanding of what voting really means and its power. Speaking for myself, researching voting really helped open my eyes to issues like voter suppression that I had not known to be as big and widespread as it is today. And I'm sure that that can go for everyone else in our group and that we're committed to still fighting for voting and voters' rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mika and Edmund. Once again, I think this project is even more important now than it was before the pandemic. So thank you to all of the Eagle Rock teams and staff and community members who helped contribute to this project. And, you know, November is not that far away, so it's just as impactful, like I said, now as when you were doing the bulk of your work on the project. And next up are the teens from the Silver Lake and Los Feliz branch libraries who are also working on a really timely project.
Hi, I'm Ingrid from the Silver Lake Library. Next slide. You can also skip this slide. When we began our project, we wanted to help our community become more eco-friendly through educating them on sustainable waste management methods. We decided that the most effective way to accomplish this was by focusing on the small local businesses in the Silver Lake and Los Feliz area. Part of our education plan for businesses was to emphasize California Assembly bills like AB 619. After the pandemic, we decided to continue to educate and reach out to our community, but to instead switch our audience to children. Next slide.
Hello, I'm Malia, also from the Silver Lake Library. So our original focus was educating small local businesses, specifically coffee shops within the Silver Lake neighborhood, about waste management, since they tend to generate a lot of waste. In order to educate those businesses, we plan to hold workshops at the library where we'd share methods for reducing the usage of single-use plastics and encourage the utilization of reusable containers, all while applying several California Assembly bills to support our points. Next slide, please.
Once the pandemic hit in March, we were afraid of adding more pressure to small local businesses due to the closures. So we decided to begin side projects. We continued our original goals during the period where everyone was at home through community outreach. Next slide.
So we also developed a side focus, which was an Instagram account for TLC. And every week we post like eco-friendly crafts and activities because we figured that kids would be a little bit bored at home because of the pandemic. And so it sort of ties into our goal of educating about waste management and recycling and being eco-friendly. And yeah. And we also have a different side project, which is a children's book. And our goal with this was also to educate kids about being eco-friendly in a fun way that they can understand easily. And we also added several fun crafts and activities to the end of the book.
Thank you so much, Ingrid, Malia, and Mattia, for sharing about your awesome project. Now, last but certainly not least, a presentation from Melanie and Julie from the Granada Hills Branch Library, which is actually pre-recorded as a video. So we're going to watch that.
Hi, welcome to the Granada Hills. We are educators that teach the people in our community, artists who are crafty with their hands, environmental activists who want to make a positive change with the help of our community. Why? Why are we doing this? In this moment of social awareness led by teens all around the world, we want to improve our community by taking action now. What have we achieved? By now we have had a library program teaching people how to make brand new paper by using old recycled paper. And additionally, we have had another program where kids learned about upcycling while making decorative light-up lanterns made from recycled plastic bottles. We have also made videos and tutorials posted on Granada Hills branch Instagram. Finally, we have had a meeting with a CSUN representative who works at the CSUN's recycling program. In this meeting, we were able to get advice on how to run public environmental-based events. He also gave us the opportunity to have a booth at the CSUN's Earth Day Fair. Where are we in the process? Unfortunately, because of COVID, many of our events and projects have gotten cancelled. However, to combat this, we are making videos promoting our message and using social media to reach our audience. To see what we post online, please follow us at Granada Hills LAPL. Also in our Instagram highlights, we have one called Teens. If you click on it, you'll be able to see all Teens Leading Change videos done by this council. What are we doing during the pandemic? During this pandemic, we have made videos such as online information on urban heat island impacts, environmental racism, and plastic-free July. Videos that are coming soon are repurposing old clothes to make masks, 365 to 0, zero waste cooking, census, culture influences in America, and voting rights. Lessons learned. As a part of Teen Council and Teens Leading Change, we have learned and have developed leadership skills, proposal writing, budget development, communication skills, resilience, and most of all, growing and making new friendships. Hello, my name is Julie and I'm a teen volunteer at the Granada Hills Public Library. One of the projects that Teen Council was hoping to hold was an art contest that would involve different high schools in the area and different teams. And our theme was how teens can make a positive impact in our community for environmental awareness. And as you can see, this is the flyer that we made to promote the contest. And we originally planned for the winners of the art contest to have their art displayed on a big banner inside the library, and we were going to reward them with gift cards, but unfortunately, due to the current circumstances, we had to change those plans. Since we couldn't hold the original contest, I created a design for the library to represent our Teen Council goal, which is to inspire the community to care for the environment. For my artwork, the earth is a ball of yarn being mixed together by two people. Since yarn is a ball of soft and delicate material, I compared its qualities to the fragile environment, and I thought it would be a cute idea to work with. Knitting takes a lot of time, effort, and care, just like taking care of our precious planet. And the two people knitting represent the community working together to care for the earth. I hope the message that can be taken is that putting in our time and love into knitting one ball of yarn is similar to putting in small efforts every day to care for the planet together. I also painted books to represent the library and other small elements related to knitting, such as cushions and cute little buttons to bring the whole piece together. I really hope you enjoy this piece as well as the presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. All of that was incredible and amazing, especially pivoting to the virtual realm after the libraries and pretty much the world had to shut down due to the pandemic. So prior to shutting down, each TLC project would have their own table for all visitors and fellow teens to go to at a real life face-to-face showcase like we've done in the past. Just so that everyone could learn more about each project in depth from each other. But since this is virtual, what we're asking is if any of you TLC participants, do you have any questions for each other about your presentations? I'm looking at the chat box because that's how we're doing it, and I will stop sharing too. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat box quite yet, but maybe what we can do is invite everyone to turn their cameras on so that we can see everyone together who's worked so hard this past school year on all of these projects.
Candace, can you hear me? This is Justice Moreno.
Yes.
Yeah, I just have 2 observations to make. I hope everybody can hear me. First of all, just following about what you said about pivoting, I'm just amazed at how all the students did an outstanding COVID workaround in being able to get together and engineer and make these presentations, each of which was really outstanding. The second point I would make is kind of a non-point in that I spoke about reading, writing, and speaking. I mean, it's clear to me that they don't need that kind of advice from me. They obviously did a lot of reading. They obviously did a great job in writing and putting together this PowerPoint. And in terms of the oral presentations, they have a fine command of the language and how to be persuasive. So I think the talent or the skills that they've put together in this thing really apply across the board to any kind of career that they want to get into. But I'm particularly impressed by each of these projects and how persuasive and commanding they were. So it was really great to be in on this.
Thank you so much, Justice Moreno, and thank you everyone for all of your great efforts, both before and during, and I'm sure even after the pandemic ends. Just to echo what Justice Moreno said and what a lot of the comments in our internal kind of chat boxes sharing, just really thank you from the tops and the bottoms of our hearts for like really continuing on with the incredible work that you did at the beginning of the year, because we know you have a lot of choices. You don't have to do all of these things with the library, and you certainly didn't have to with everything else going on during the pandemic. So we really appreciate you all, whether you're a staff person, a teen, a parent, Library Foundation staff person, funder, supporter, ally, administration. Thank you, heart. And just if there, I'm trying to look to see whether or not there are any questions. I have one last slide just to share really super quick if I can remember how to do so. Oh, I think I did the wrong thing. Didn't see me. There we go. Which is just, if you've been inspired by everyone's awesome projects as much as I have, and I'm sure many of us in the participating in this event have, please feel free to email teenservices@lapl.org to join TLC Cycle 5, which will be opening this fall, or to learn more about the project in general. Thank you so very much for joining us. And hope to see you next year at our next showcase, or even sooner if you want to join one of our, join the TLC Cycle 5. Thank you, thank you. Take care, be safe, wash your hands, wear your masks, and have a good rest of your day.